Well, hey there, Catherine Langman here, and back with another episode of the Productpreneur Success Podcast. And I was reflecting back on my own journey after having a chat with today's guest for the show, and remembering, what it was like starting my business. And really, the idea of starting a business after having a baby and going on maternity leave, it's such a familiar story. It's my own story. It's the experience I know of many of you listeners. And it's also been the experience of my guest today, Katie Eslick, who is the founder of Little Windmill Clothing Co., which is such a beautiful brand. If you don't know it yet, you have to check it out. What's a bit different about Katie's journey, though, to building her popular label is the fact that she lives in a really remote region in Outback Queensland, Australia, on a cattle station. Now, I'm sure you can imagine some of the challenges that she would come up against, but aside from things like, postal service, courier services, and that sort of thing being hard to access, she has no phone service, and she even struggles to get internet access, sometimes having to climb up a hill near a phone tower just to get some bandwidth, which is kind of a big problem when you run an online business. But the cool thing about Katie that I really loved finding out about her is that she was really forced to develop some creative problem-solving skills and to be able to work around the constraints caused by operating from such a remote location. And in actual fact, that's really enabled and facilitated her to grow her business quite fast. So she now runs a really successful brand. She's got a warehouse, she has a team, and she's distributing all over the world. And it's super inspiring and exciting to listen to. So we will bring her onto the show in just a minute. Now, if you're listening to this interview when it goes live, I'll be in the middle of running my e-commerce growth bootcamp, where I'll be helping some online store owners to design their $1 million e-commerce traffic and sales strategy. Now, if you're a little bit like Katie, and you'll hear what she says in a minute, and think maybe you should be asking for help a little more or often or a little sooner than normal, rather than struggling to figure everything out alone, I just really want to invite you to join me for my free workshop. It's going to run this Thursday, the 24th of August. And this is a live and interactive workshop. I'm only going to be running it on that one day only, but it will really be about, your e-commerce growth strategies, how you can really accelerate your growth, all of that kind of good stuff. So like I said, one day only. Hopefully you can join me. If you're interested, you can register for free at catherinelangman.com/workshop. And I will, of course, include that link on the podcast show notes page. But for now, without further ado, let's welcome Katie to the show. So welcome to the show, Katie. It's really great to meet you and to have you here today.
No, thank you, Catherine, for having me.
Yeah, so good. And just before we jumped on record, you were telling me a little bit about how it's hard for you to do these things because your internet access is so unreliable because you are not in a big city. You're quite far away, I believe. So
Yeah, so we live about 2 hours south of Tamworth on a cattle station. Within that area, we have no phone service or anything like that until you're under a satellite or, within reach of a hill, perhaps. And that's the best you can do.
yeah, so a little bit of a different experience compared to our city slickers. So
Yeah.
I'm excited that we get to do this today, and hopefully the internet gods will be kind to us and we can have a good conversation.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, introduce yourself. Tell us, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you to starting your business.
Yep. So I'm a Katie. I'm a mum of four, under the age of 6.
Wow.
The youngest is 11 months, and we live, quite remote, as mentioned. And I started Little Windmill Clothing Co. as a bit of a side gig to something to do while on maternity leave, like all good businesses start. And from there, it was because I basically had lived in the USA and the UK and things like that, and had been sending these beautiful gifts over to family or friends that had had little ones. And then after coming home, I realized there just wasn't that same market. There wasn't that in between that you could find a nice gift for someone that wasn't commercial or out of a big store, or someone or didn't already have it.
Mm.
And especially probably to meet our style of clothing and, you know, living on the land and that kind of lifestyle, I found there was a massive gap. And to fill that, it was either go to the US or create our own.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of started.
Yeah. And so how long ago was that?
So we started the brand in 2017.
Yep.
Though from there, we've only actually had our own clothing label or our own label that's now expanding since 2020.
Wow.
So only 3 years we've actually had our own clothing label release online.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's all happened quite quickly along with growing your family by the sounds of things.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think that story of being inspired to and actually starting a business when you as a mum and going on maternity leave, it's very common experience for myself and a lot of our listeners as well. But yeah, a little bit different from you because you also had that experience and inspiration from living overseas. So yeah, that's really, really awesome. Tell us, I mean, I can only imagine because I've not lived in rural areas, but I can only imagine that you've been going through some slightly different challenges than some as a physical product business owner. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like what are some of the things you've had to overcome in that time?
Yeah. So I think having started it, I realized like we weren't going to be able to get to town to do daycare drop-offs. And because I was previously an equine vet nurse, I knew that style of work wasn't going to suit having children and where we lived and, you know, doubling backwards and forwards to basically get the kids care. So I think having been out there, it was relying on all online and then working out how we would get the orders to town without having to drive that every day.
Yeah.
So we were really lucky that our post office was allowing us to pick up from our main station. And basically they did that for a long time, a good 18 months or so, until we were unable to do it because we were filling their ute, the back of their ute too much. They were having to double back to get our load of stuff to take to town. And yeah, it was getting to a point where it was not going to be sustainable because it wasn't fair on them. But we were really lucky.
Yeah, they couldn't functionally make that happen for you.
Yeah.
So what did you do next? How did you get past that hurdle?
Well, I think that was probably when, you know, COVID happened. And it was a little bit of a turnaround time there for us too. Like when we first started, we were doing other brands and we were selling, you know, bits and pieces, same styles, but not our own. So from there, we kind of then thought, okay, well, I'll do my own brand and my own designs, my own prints. So all the graphic designs are all printed onto the cotton. So we kind of then took a big, I guess, 360 and started that process. So it grew really fast, probably within COVID. People were shopping online. So we started doing a lot of different things from, you know, I had to manage the kids. I was pregnant. We live remotely. So I realized I couldn't work with the kids at home. So I ended up having to work from 8 till about 2 a.m. in the morning every night.
Oh my goodness.
Packing orders. And then when we got to the point where my husband's like, this is insane, because the brand did take off, we then had to basically decide that it was time to find help, outsource, and make the move to town to a warehouse. And that's where we kind of had to go to grow as also. Like it was, it was a challenge because I guess previous to that, I had managed the kids at home. We'd gone on the buggy, taken orders. The boys helped me pack them all, pile them all up in the back of the buggy, go across rivers. And it was, I guess, a bit of an exciting thing for our followers to see that. Now to, we do it all in town, our closest town. And we've got help now. So it's been a big turnaround, but I still have the kids with me at work because there's only one at primary school.
Right.
So it's still a juggle, but it's easier now having outsourced a bit of help.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I hope and I imagine that kids of that age, you know, they can start to do, or the older ones anyway, they can start to do little bits to help, and it's probably kind of fun for them at that age.
Yeah.
Still a juggle for you, obviously.
Well, that's it. I think they were used to seeing it. Like, it overtook our spare bedroom and the office. So they were used to, the samples coming, the designs, the new prints. And I try not to work in front of them, but they're aware of it, and they don't seem to get in the road too often. And yeah, it's been definitely different on their end, probably seeing it, that they find that their clothes actually come from their mother.
That's really cool. How did you go about finding the right people then to help you?
I think that's a question I get often, even from different people. I guess finding the people to even start the manufacturing journey, as well as the girls that work for me now, that's probably been one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Because you're relying on putting all your money into hoping this product's going to be what you think it's going to be. The sampling costs so much money. And then, if you get that wrong or you have to redo it, it's again a great deal of money, or, finding a new manufacturer. So we've been probably really lucky. We've only ever had 2 manufacturers. Like, our first one didn't really worked out, but again, the fabrics we just couldn't source as well.
Yep.
And then it was basically Google searches were the best way to go about sourcing manufacturers and things like that. Word of mouth, finding the right fabrics, making sure that they're, all ethically made and sourced by what we were wanting. Like, we really wanted cotton, and we really wanted to print directly on the fabric. So there was a lot of those challenges. And then from there, it was like, I guess, the shipping expenses and things like that. We just had to find a lot of ways around it to, I guess, build on that, and also know that we're getting the right product at the end of it. And then moving into town, it was also then trying to find the right people to help out.
I was just going to say, I reckon that the fact that you've had those logistical issues just, that you had to overcome based on where you are, has probably ultimately prompted you to grow faster than maybe some other businesses do, because they're a bit fearful about taking on the step of, taking on a warehouse and taking on a team and doing all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silver lining, perhaps.
Possibly, yes. That's probably a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what are the things that you've done to really help you grow, aside from the boost to e-commerce that COVID gifted us?
Yeah. I think just being consistent. Like, I think when when you're around people and I found that probably getting on stories, as much as it bothers me, I probably don't show my face as much, but I think just being present and showing up, so that, people don't, like, I know they're not going to forget about you, but I also think that you're making them aware that, oh, that's right, that shirt that I loved was there, and that's right, oh, that's right, that popped up again, and tell a friend. And I think that has really helped us, along with, we did a few pop-up markets, which we don't do anymore. However, we do bigger trade shows now. But I think all those little steps made it to what it is today, and probably put a bit more brand awareness on us, which, again, it's probably different from then to now. Like, we run a lot more ads. But yeah, I think there's a lot in being consistent and showing up.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, there's a lot of people that probably don't mean to, but, there's this feeling like if it doesn't work straight away, then it's not going to work, and so I'm just going to stop doing that and start something else. And that, it's like a constant chasing of shiny objects and new different ideas, and that lack of consistency hurts people a lot. So
yeah. And I think saying that, like, too, it's one of those things where if you're known for one thing, like, we kind of entered the market knowing that the gap was like kids' country clothing shirts, like the shirt side of things, like a nice collared button-down shirt for children wasn't there, or in the right price range. I think having that start in being that one idea, that led other people to come to you for that one reason that you started it.
So you really niched down in the beginning to that. It wasn't just a look and a feel for the range, but it was a particular item.
Yeah, that's right. So then, when other people are searching for that item, you come first to mind, instead of
Mm.
a heap of other bigger brand styles, or, you're remembered because that's what you're trying to portray that to other people, and that's what they remember you for, that the quality's there, the product's there, and that's what they were after.
Yeah, so you were the go-to store and the go-to brand for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Did you follow that sort of approach through with some of your marketing as well? Like, really just becoming really good at a certain thing that people would know you for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we predominantly targeted those that were rural, remote, lived on the land, those that wanted to be similar to, dress like their dad, farmers, also for sun safe, things like that. Like, I think it's one of those kinds of shirts that, it's 100% cotton, it's breathable, it's sun safe for those little ones, and it's also like there's different styles that would fit from a baby, newborn, to all the way up to a teen. And I think it was that kind of niche that found us to grow, because you couldn't buy it. It wasn't something that was easily sourced elsewhere. Like, you could get men's or ladies, or you could get the one off in a certain size for just boys, but not for girls, or not for babies, but for older kids. So I think having that one product, the t-shirts, like the shirts, the button downs, was what drew a lot of our crowd at first. And then from there, we've kind of established other products and grown with a lot of other ranges, from baby onesies to your blankets and wraps and things like that. So I think it's having that one product that drew them in, that fitted their lifestyle, to then go from there.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it sounds to me a little bit like it's almost like a lifestyle brand, really, because that range sounds quite large now, and still keeping that customer in mind, that same customer in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely has grown from what we started with our one product to what we have now.
Yeah, super. What are your photo shoots like? They must be a lot of fun. Do you get like the dads and the mums as well to?
They say not to work with children and animals.
Yes.
And putting them together, it makes it even harder. So, we have horses or dogs or little people and babies, and it's just chaotic. It's fun, but it's crazy. And the kids love dressing up, or they hate it. It's never smooth, but it's never an absolute disaster either. It's just kind of riding out, hoping that it comes together at the end of it. And, we've been really lucky that we have got the kids that, we get those few great shots with, and they're probably more realistic and relatable. But it's hectic. It's really, crazy.
Oh, I can just imagine. Sounds like a lot of fun. You keep saying we've been so lucky, but to me, it sounds like you just have this personality that's really a positive problem solver to me.
Yeah, maybe. I guess
that happens.
I don't know. I probably get really nervous and anxious a lot more than it probably comes across, because every release I'm just about make myself sick. But I think that's probably where the drive comes from. Like, a lot of people say I wouldn't be able to work from 8 p.m. once the kids go to bed till 2 a.m. But I think it's that I know there's something in it, and I know that there's a reason for it, and it suits us. It suits my lifestyle, living on the land. But I'd also think that I don't know, it just keeps me going. And I think there's always a way out of it, or make it better, or to grow it bigger. So I think it's just little sleep will pay off in the long run.
Hopefully you'll catch up eventually.
Yeah.
Some people say they'll sleep when they're dead, but that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Do you have a vision or an ambition for what you want to achieve with Little Windmill Clothing? Putting you on the spot.
Great question. However, like, starting this wasn't meant to be anything. It was just meant to be something to fill in the time. It was never meant to be even a business. I had no desires to run my own business. I had no desires to develop my own product. I had no desires of any of that, which I guess led me to being very open-minded, or not have too high expectations, because I don't feel that it's because to make money, it's not to do anything like that. It's basically was to kind of fill that gap that I needed as a first-time mum, or to be myself, and especially living out so remotely, there was no one else around me. So the connection to having other people at the end of a phone or online was kind of how it started. But I think now it's got bigger, would be ideally just to keep growing, to get into the America, to kind of go to those places that I knew they have it there, but I also think that they could have a little bit more, or I already know they love it over there. And also, I guess, be seen more throughout Australia. So, hopefully we will grow. We'll grow into a bigger warehouse. We'll grow into more staffing. We'll grow to be more well known, because it's definitely a niche in the market, and it's definitely a target market that may not suit all. But having been to Sydney and different places like that with our brand, it's amazing how many people actually find that a nice collared shirt for a little person is more common needed than you realize. So,
well, I'm down in South Australia, and I can tell you it would go well down here. Absolutely.
That's good to know.
Yeah, definitely. And so next question that I have for you, I'd love to hear from you what you see is kind of the next, what's happening for the rest of the year, like kind of getting towards the pointy end of 2023. Maybe not quite yet. We've got a few months to go. What's on the pipeline for you guys?
So I guess we kind of go from September through till December. Like, they're our busy big months. They're the times that we have to knuckle down, and that it really kicks on for being those that are really organized and do Christmas shopping, unlike myself. I'm more of a December person, but a lot of people start shopping for Christmas basically now through till December. So this is spring, summer is our fun time with clothing and things like that. So we have a lot of new products coming, because I always stick to the same stuff. Our polos are great. Our button downs are always fabulous, but we always like to put a little bit of extras in. So now we've just started ladies wear. There was a big demand for having similar shirts to the kids, because they were well loved, washed well, and women were saying they wanted them also. We've also just started menswear.
Wow.
So we've just dived into the men's polo shirts to match the boys, which is still going to be only a very small drop in the ocean for adults. However, they have been loving it and lapping it up. And then we will also do a small Christmas release, which is our first time ever.
Wow.
And regarding that, it won't be just prints that you can wear during Christmas. It's kind of like a longevity, nice ginghams and things like that, yes, portray as Christmas, because they're a slight green or a little bit of red, or thrown in those silver tones. But really, you don't want to wear one item once. You want to be able to put it in your cupboard and know that you can bring it out in March or January, or even the following year for the next Christmas, without it being too Christmassy. So, there's probably a bit happening towards the end of the year, and hoping it goes all well, because it's probably a lot of little things that we haven't actually dove into before. But yeah.
Sounds like you're doing it though in a way that's really responding to your audience. So I would imagine that will be well received.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, we always try and do a few sneak peeks, and even with the breastfeeding side of things, having just finished breastfeeding my own daughter again and going down that path again, the clothing was really difficult to find. So as much as I need to rein it in slightly, because I know that I probably am going into a lot of different avenues with the farm prints and the country style of things, it's hard not to try and do the breastfeeding thing. And it's hard not to kind of go into bedding, because there's nothing of the range that, kids love farm animals. They love all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of dibble-dabbling in a lot more than we had been previously, but I think it's getting responsive that we're getting back from our stories, or, the small sneak peeks are really going well for us. So I'm hoping it's a positive end to the year.
That's exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to see it all roll out. I have 3 kind of final questions I like to ask everyone these on the show. And putting your mind back to starting your business, when you were first really thinking about it, what would you say to yourself back then? Like, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back in time?
Probably to ask for help, probably to not have to know everything, but also Oh goodness, there's so much I'd probably go back on. There's a lot that I probably put pressure on myself that I didn't need to, or uh, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, but it also, I think if you know something's going to work, just stick to it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's probably a lot I could advise myself on, but there's probably stuff that you can't know until you start really getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of outsourcing that you can probably find to
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. I think not asking for help is probably something a lot of women are pretty good at
Yeah.
not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think you're right. Like there's a lot of other things that even if you got the advice, you might not take it necessarily until you had the experience yourself. But asking for help is something that a lot of us women do in a lot of aspects of our life. Maybe we could probably do that
Yeah.
a bit more and be a little less stressed along the way.
Yeah.
Next question for you is, what has been one of the best decisions you've made so far in your business?
Outsourcing. Outsourcing, getting a VA, that's been amazing.
Yep.
And probably putting on staff and moving.
Yep.
A lot of those things have really, like they say, you work on your business, not in your business. And it's taken me a long time to understand that, because you want to be across everything and you want to do everything. And like you've mentioned before, you don't ask for help because that's probably a woman's trait, and it's also what you knows best.
Mm.
But I think, yeah, the biggest thing's been to outsource, get help, really up our, the marketing side of things that I couldn't do. I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do email marketing plus do all the social media. I couldn't do all the packing of the orders. I couldn't be everywhere. So I was once, and I now look back and I don't know how I did it. I really don't. Like, I guess I would pack orders till midnight and then do the computer work from midnight till 2.
I don't know how you ever got to sleep after that, just being on a computer at that time.
No, I probably didn't see my husband for a good 6 months.
Yeah, right. You could have had another kid in that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's probably where it got to the point where it was, we did that last quarter of the year, and it kind of got to the point where he was like, well, what are we going to do? Like, it's obviously getting too big for me on my own. So yeah, outsourcing.
Yeah.
Best decision. And I would advise anyone, when you get to the point where you're being pulled in every direction, just to find other ways.
Yeah. When you approach that decision yourself, do you remember feeling fearful or worried about taking on a team or taking on the expense or any of that kind of stuff? Because I know that's common for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I was more worried that, that your profit, or that the money you and time you're putting into everything was going to go out the door even further. Like, because it takes so long to build, and everything you earned went back into the business, and then you're going, okay, well, now I'm paying this person to do email marketing, and I could have done that. And now you're paying this person to pack orders, and I could have done that. But I think once you just give it a go, it's refreshing as well.
Yeah.
And you'll find that you can work on other parts of the business that really do help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is very common to have that fear of taking on all of those extra risks, or it feels risky to take it on. And then, the fear is that you're not going to grow further and make it all worthwhile. So I'm glad that you've had the experience that it has been worthwhile for you. It's enabled you to grow further. So that's amazing. I have one more question for you today, and I love to ask this of everyone. And that is, what do you love the most about being a business owner?
Oh, there is lots, I think. Not that, again, I never wondered or wanted to know what it was like being a business owner.
No.
But I think now, having been in it, I would say it's being able to look at someone and know that your product's loved. It's being able to see it on someone else and know that you created that and people wanted it.
Yeah.
And I think that happens even with the release. Like, I do not cope release days at all. I would happily put my hand up and say that. I hate new products. I hate release days. However, they're the funnest part as well, because you're like, oh my goodness, like, that I made is actually loved by someone.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you see it down the street, I think that was my first light bulb moment. I was driving to pick my kids up, and there was a little girl walking down the street in a polo. And I was like, my goodness, that's something I made. That's something that someone wants to wear.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best part about being a business owner, and that I can bring the kids with me, because I know that that's a massive struggle for women and working mums.
Yeah.
It just doesn't normally allow it. And I don't have to answer to someone to say, you know, like the other day, my eldest was sick, but he came to work with me.
Yeah.
And the baby still comes to work with me, and the toddler comes to work with me. Like it's a juggle, 100%. But I think all those little things add up to why I guess I keep going, and why it's worked so well for us at the end of it, because I couldn't do that if I worked for someone.
No, 100%. I love it. So let our listeners know, where can they go and find you online, to share your website and your socials so that people can go check out your stuff?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at Little Windmill Clothing Co. We're on Facebook, Little Windmill Clothing Co. And we're on TikTok, which has been a lot of fun. I have no idea how to drive it, but it's been a lot of fun. And it's amazing how many people come in and say that they found us on TikTok.
Wow.
And I guess, and our website, which is www.littlewindmillclothingco.com, and we ship worldwide. So there's a lot of orders going to all over the world that have been great to see that people want to send something to someone in another country.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So we will absolutely list your all those links on our podcast show notes page, and excited to share your story. So thank you so much for jumping on and doing this interview with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's okay. Thanks for having me. It's been good fun.